we often think about things very intuitively when it is Bollywood. We feel that Hindi movies are not doing well and South Indian films are doing a lot better. Or Hindi movies are doing well because see, wow, look at Pathan, Jawan, 1,000 crores. But actually you also feel that as a trend, as a function of resources, it's not up to mark. So when we look at those questions, we look at people who can answer those questions. And so we sought out the founder and managing director of Ormax Media. Ormax is the only important, impactful, respected consulting firm in the entertainment sector. And Mr. Shailesh Kapoor has been running this organization since inception. It's a very interesting battle. We'll discuss that too. So first of all, Mr. Shailesh, I want to know: are South Indian films bigger and better than they were before? Are they going to take over the Hindi movie industry? What's the data that, and your own opinion, of course?
Yeah. No, thank you. First of all, I think the question is not a yes, no. They are definitely bigger than they used to be before the pandemic. There is no doubt on that. Or before, I would say 2017-18, when the second Bahubali film came, and then later there have been other films, mostly post the pandemic, KGF and RRR and Pushpa 2, Pushpa 1 and now Pushpa 2 this year.
Animal also.
Yeah, I mean, it's an indie film, but yes. Okay. Yeah, so that is also a fact, the influence of South directors like Jawan being, and Animal both being directed by people from the South. So there is definitely an influence of South filmmakers and South film industries on Hindi cinema via dubbed films as well as via some of the makers from there. But then there have been, in Hindi films, like, recently Stree 2 has done very well. So overall, if you see the share of Hindi films to box office, it's around 39-40% right now in this year 2024. It was around 45% before the pandemic, so there is a 5 percentage point shift to mostly to South, but it's not like 45 has dropped to 30 or something. It's still a marginal shift, and last year also was around 39-40% for early 40s, 43 I think, because some of the bigger films really worked. So I think overall one can sense that it will settle at 40% share. Now obviously, given that Hindi addresses a large part of the country, you should expect this share to be higher than just 40%, but then the cinema density in South is much more. There's a culture of going to movies. The idea of fandom is far more evolved in South, and this is not a recent thing. It's been there like that for many years. And I think Hindi cinema does not have those advantages of lots of people watching movies at 50 rupees, 60 rupees. So I think also the market is very heterogeneous. Somebody in small town of UP versus somebody in Mumbai, you can't make the same content for both those people very easily. I think there are too many factors, yes, but overall little decline, but not like South will take over or something, but yes, you could see more influence of South on Hindi cinema via makers from there coming into Hindi, as well as via style of content changing.
Yeah, that's an intelligent middle path that you get South Indian directors, South Indian producers maybe to work in Hindi movies. Their culture could rub off positively in the Hindi movie business. I couldn't just, when we were sitting down today, I just felt that we should also discuss about this. It's a consulting firm that you run after all. And just 2 days back, there was this girl who's died in Ernst & Young, working for 14 hours, 16 hours, 6 days a week or 7 days a week. And the big four consulting firms, they've always had this culture of working 7 days a week. I mean, they've been, even a high performing executive works very hard and long, works very long. So what do you think about it? How do you as a consulting firm not get into that trap?
Yeah, I think it's, I don't know if it's specific to consulting, because I think every company eventually has its own culture. I've seen in media also, a lot of our clients are media companies. Essentially, most of our clients are media companies with like TV channels, OTT platforms, studios. Within that also you see very diverse cultures. There'll be certain companies which will be very cutthroat and similar to what you're saying in terms of number of work hours and all. And certain companies which are more relaxed and laid back. I think global companies, there is a global culture which then tends to come to India, and it kind of evolves in its own way in the Indian market. Indian companies sometimes find their own method. But yeah, I guess in the consulting industry, when you talk of certain companies like the Big Four, you could see more of that kind of a cutthroat
systematic. Yeah, I mean, it's not just a one-off incident. The people that, because I've also been in consulting, so I do know that people in these Big Fours, they work very long hours, irrespective of how great performers they may be. I mean, they don't get a
I
easier
imagine
life.
so in our case, because we built organically, now we've completed 16 years. So when we started this company, we actually did not try and borrow anything from either the consulting industry or the research industry or the media industry. A lot of what we have built is very organic, and I think it's more, we take pride in the fact that we are a small company of just 35 people, because it allows us to be unique in terms of our culture, our values, and we see ourselves as a very cohesive family kind of unit, but at the same time very high on processes and data, and not, sometimes when you say small company, you associate that with chaos.
But let me just add to this that a consulting firm with 35 people is a very big consulting firm.
That's also true.
McKinsey or a center of whatever. I mean, most of their city teams would be this size, or smaller or bigger. Private equity firms are just 10, 15 people. So definitely it's a big company now. How do you see a journey building, Ormax? Because I know that entertainment consulting is itself a very oxymoronic kind of a business. When producers are not the species that spends on advice. Most of them are mom and pop stores, and their checks used to bounce. I think 10 years ago, at least, that was. If it's the history now, but
we still struggle with receivables.
So now you are in those very difficult territories like content testing. I mean, you are offering advice to production houses, film producers, who feel that only we know how content works, and there can't be any value add from a consultant. So how has this journey been? I mean, what have been the key milestones along the path?
Yeah, so it's not entirely true that everybody thinks like that. See, there are corporates and there are companies like, say, if you talk about somebody like a Star or a Sony, or if you talk about Netflix, Amazon, there are of course companies which have a culture of data and research over the years internationally or in India. And then there are of course a lot of these homegrown family-run kind of production houses, and so you have the whole spectrum. So I think our journey has been to convert people into believers of data and research, and to be able to make the point that research does not come at the cost of creativity. In fact, it is there to enhance consulting inputs, data, any audience input at any stage is there to enhance creativity and to give you more material on the table to take a decision which is still in sync with what your gut is, but then it's hopefully an
more informed
decision, because eventually in a creative product, if the maker doesn't buy into a recommendation, there's no point, because if a director or a producer doesn't buy into what you're saying, they will not implement it. So even if you say it and they pay you for it, if the findings are not implemented, it is not very satisfying.
To give you a sense of how far this has gone, they've done 1,000 projects last week. In content testing.
We completed 1,000 content testing projects last week, so it's been 16 years. So I think
they've had a lot of science. Their science behind content is very well accepted. Folks like Karan Johar, Arunabh Kumar, they refer to your ratings, your rankings, and your work to understand where the industry is going, where the box offices are going. So it's a very humble way of the way you put it, but it's very difficult, and I think it's very admirable that.
So I should say that
the best creators trust your ratings and your studies.
Right. So it's been a journey to convert non-believers into believers, and that process is still going on. So now we are focusing more on South. So we still, I would say, 70 to 75% of our work is Hindi in testing. In other areas, probably South is slightly more. the number of films or shows being made in South is obviously more than just 20-25% of all India. But like in the industry, when we started focusing on testing and research, it took us few years to convince some of the smaller producers and the production houses and even
Go in for your
even smaller TV channels to understand why they should be spending money in something like content testing or something like any type of research. And now we are doing the same process with South. So it will take time.
Your ratings, your rankings are much in public domain. I mean, that is your first introduction to public. I mean, that's what they see everywhere. But beyond that, of course, you are basically a consulting firm, right?
So whatever is in the public domain is essentially what we don't make much money on. That's just data to kind of
just to put that in perspective. So, like, what is the current portfolio of products and services at Ormax?
So I think roughly we can divide our work into three broad categories. One is content testing, which is whether we're testing a web series or a film or a TV show. It could be at a script stage, it could be at a pilot stage or a final product stage. That's around 40% of our current work, I would say. Then around another 25-30% of work is tracking and forecasting. So for example, when a trailer of a new movie comes out, we interview audiences to understand, are they looking forward to that film, and then use that data to predict what the first day box office will be. And similarly, there are equivalent products in OTT and television. So this whole area, so this is live tracking of campaigns of new shows, new movies. This is a fairly big area, especially in Bollywood or in I would say theatrical business across 9 languages. Now we are doing this. So the third area is bespoke.
Who's been your one of your favorite clients? I mean, of course, you can't see your favorite client, but any interesting episode you will want to share about having worked with a movie star or a film producer? So a movie project which which has some interesting takeaway or trivia maybe.
One of our very early projects when we had just started off back in 2011, which is actually good 13 years old, was when we worked with Shahrukh Khan on Ravan, his film Ra.1. And he wanted to research the film, and we researched it in around 4 markets with different audiences, kids, youth, parents. And it was a very interesting experience because he was also doing it pretty much for the first time in a more scientific, structured way, because normally you show it to friends and family and get feedback. The feedback on the film itself was not very positive. Later, the film didn't go on to do that well. I think over the years it has found some appreciation as years have passed. But when we presented to him, he was very open to understanding why it didn't work, and it was very unusual compared to normally what happens when you have a very negative report and where the numbers are not looking good and you are eventually giving bad news. So there's always that issue in being the messenger of bad news. But I think his approach was to learn and to be able to understand, and with a very open mind, given the years of experience he has both as an actor and a producer. It was quite interesting to see him being so open, and I think that's one meeting which
and it was so and in a way the film still met its objective of having a lot of VFX, for which Red Chillies is known. So that's
also I think through that project we got good perspective on the fact that the film will open well but may not sustain for too long. So how would you
as we battle the problems of unemployment and job creation, how do where do you think are the opportunities which are less untapped? On one hand, we have, can startups, venture capital funds, can they fix the problem, or can they help in resolving some of these? TVF is a high volume employer. It does more web series, it does more it launches a lot more things than a traditional production house does. So where do you think are some places where employment opportunities can be improved a little bit?
See, I think media industry, to be fair, is in terms of percentage of GDP and all, is not that big that it can be this is a big factor. Also, what happens is that how much content is being made at any point of time is a function of what the demand from the platform side is. For example, this year there's been a definite slowdown in the number of web series getting made. Compared to last year, it's almost down by 20-25% because all the platforms, whether it is some of the bigger platforms like Amazon and Hotstar, for various reasons, there's a merger going on between Jio and Star, which of course impacts some of this. And I think there's a general global slowdown in how much content is getting made, and that cascades to India as well. So because the amount of content getting made is lower, you will see an impact of that on employment, especially on contractual employment. And
thanks for putting the data in this. Like, yes, as like when intuitively when one feels that okay, there's less work this year and all, you put that into numbers, 20-25%. For various factors.
Yeah, it's like last year was kind of the peak of content production in India. I think the number of shows that were made across platforms, but OTT is the new platform, so around 400.
How do you mix your own emotion with data? Like, have you wanted a movie to succeed? And you liked it, and you saw, oh, the numbers are so bad.
Those days are gone, because I think now it's blended so much in the head that separation is not possible anymore. But yeah, well, if I'm watching something, I still have a way of not thinking of it too much from a numbers perspective and enjoy it or not enjoy it for what it is.
Which are the shows or movies you've enjoyed very recently, last 1 year?
Movies have been difficult to find. I mean, I really because most of the movies that are working at like one thing you enjoy for the moment, but then I don't know if they stay with you. I really like 12th Fail, I have to say, because that was a movie that was very different from what is coming out, and I was glad that they went for a theatrical release, which many people would have thought it should go to OTT directly, and that really did well. I quite liked the Kandahar Hijack show, which I watched recently. It's been getting a lot of mixed reactions, and it's been part of controversy for various reasons. But I think at least the fact that we're telling true stories which have not been told so far is something which I find as a progressive step in general, because in India, I think many stories which are part of our modern history have not been told via film and series. So it's good to see that at least these attempts are being made. And yeah, so I think there have been things. I watch a lot of YouTube, I have to say, and a lot of my consumption is of stuff like interviews and podcasts and stuff. So it's difficult to sometimes have the patience to sit through a full series in the days of YouTube.
See, the verdict is very clear. Box office, when you see cinema halls showing the old films repeatedly, that things are quite bad in many ways. Even we don't watch as movies or web series the way we would watch 2 years back or 4 years back. You just started an educational course. So
yes.
What is the course about, and what are the other hidden dreams you have? What can we expect out of you personally or Ormax in the coming years?
Yeah. So the course is essentially a course on media education. It's the basics of Indian media business. I feel like the motivation for the course has been that a lot of people show interest in wanting to be a part of this industry, but actually if you see, there's not much information available, even if you search online, on how the Indian media industry functions. So I think a lot of people come with the idea that, if I like movies or I like watching shows, this could be an industry I enjoy working in. But that in creative pursuits like writing or direction or any technical side, acting, that could be true. But when you're working on the business side, just because you like movies, you may not enjoy working on movies from a business side. So I think the idea was to help students as well as young executives who are at that stage in their life when they're taking that decision to whether this is an industry for them or not, and if yes, what kind of work in this industry could excite them, to inform them and educate them with how the industry functions and how the different segments of the industry operate, the business side of it, without making it too technical and complicated, give an overview over 10 sessions, a little bit career guidance also, which is a part of the 10th session and the last session is on that. Because unfortunately in India, the documentation on these things tends to be very sketchy. So there will be some books on Indian media industry and that kind of stuff. But if you really want to get into how the industry functions, that insight is not there. So this is the first edition. We have got around 20 odd students who have enrolled for it. I think once the first one finishes, we'll obviously take feedback and regroup. And I think the idea is the ability to scale into something much bigger.
Have you been tempted to be a film producer and all?
No, not really, because we feel that what we're doing right now puts us in a very unique space. We are kind of in the bridge between producers, platforms, and the audience, and of course, data provides that bridge. If you become a producer of any kind, you have to then question what is the unique skill you're bringing, which no producer has, and data could be one of them. But then we would rather partner with producers and through our data rather than get into that ourselves. So I don't think there is any thought of that direction.
Any dream that's still in the pipeline?
No, personally, I definitely want to write more. I know you are an author, so you would relate to that. So I am working on a couple of book ideas, and I think this is a year when I've been spending more time on it. So hopefully next year I would.
And personally, I like the content that the articles. Content is a bad word to use. The articles that you put out on your website, I find them so much more informative than the big four content, the reports that are made in public domain. I mean, when you look at those big four reports, going back to the E&Y episode, see, one can very clearly say that they do not know what they're talking about. Right? But personally, I mean, that's my take on the reports that they put out. They still are the benchmark for referencing the data and projections. But I like your content a lot more. I really like your articles on South India. I mean, there's so many articles that are like a must read. I mean, if you want to divert your energy positively into your interest in movies, their website is something one would really want to watch. So I don't know how to wrap up this I think 4-hour conversation we can have on somebody who has tracked movies for very, very long. Any last words you'd want to say?
I first of all should say that thank you for this last part, because we have put in a lot of effort. We are not a newspaper or an online magazine that we have a team of journalists writing these articles. I mean, this is a team here which is doing it along with their regular work. The idea is to again create a culture of data and knowledge in the industry, and it's a long vision of saying that data and knowledge can go a long way in helping the industry grow. The returns are not immediate, because you obviously, all this work that we are putting out, a lot of our reports are not something we are monetizing, but we feel that that's a longer view on it, and that's how we have looked at this. So we're not looked at it in terms of the classical approach of consulting on which are the clients which are giving you a certain share of revenue or whatever. I think we're looking at in an industry which is a very specific industry, trying to create a culture of knowledge, data, and then hopefully we get the benefits of it over time, because we are the ones driving that thought process.
So thanks a lot, Mr. Shailesh Kapoor. I think it was great to have you. Ormax was a big bad idea. It just turned out to be a big great idea. And thanks a lot to Namaste Universal Solutions for sponsoring this episode. Thanks a lot to viewers, of course. I hope you discovered this interview along the years, and I hope to have one more conversation with you, because many things are left unasked.
And definitely it will be a pleasure.